Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to call tonight's regular meeting of council to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of October 16th, 2017 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of September 11th, 2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 11th, 2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item 3C, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of September 18th, 2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Moreau, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item 3D, recommendation that the minutes of the special regular council meeting of September 18th, 2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first up we have a petition and delegation. Ms. Sarah Zimmerman, Public Relations, and Herb Pond, Chair, and Justine Coleman, VP of Education, Puyan Mohabi, the Dean of the Northwest Community College, regarding the renaming of Northwest Community College. Welcome.
Thank you. A small change of plans. Justin Coleman wasn't able to make it, so we invited Herb Pond, agreed to join us tonight.
Okay.
He's the Chair of the Board of Governors for Northwest Community College. Thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you.
So I understand I have 10 minutes, including questions. So this is a 30-minute presentation that will be very condensed. If I skip through a couple slides, please forgive me. And just wanted to say thank you for having us here tonight. It's always nice to see people face to face and have an opportunity to discuss our initiatives. So thank you. Without any further ado, I will carry on. We'll quickly go through what brought us here to wanting to change our name to Coast Mountain College. It's not a big secret. We're going to talk a little bit about our vision and strategic plan, why this matters to the City of Prince Rupert, a little bit about our naming engagement process and the support to date. 3 years ago, Ken Burt came to us as president and CEO of the college, and at the time there was a guiding document for the college from 2012 to 2017, and it was a strategic plan that had about 33 objectives, 12 values, and while it was a great collection of feedback from our communities, it was a tough strategic plan to follow with that many objectives. As a communications person, I'm really driven by making a strategic plan connected to goals and objectives, and so that was difficult. So we kind of stepped back and worked with our management team on establishing a strategic plan that took about 2 years to do, and that was also at the request of the Board of Governors, who had observed that we'd been experiencing decline in population, economic difficulties in the region, and trying to stay viable in that kind of market is really difficult if you're only drawing from students in the communities that you serve. So we went through a process of identifying some key pillars. We did some human resource management with the management team. About half of the management positions were vacant at the time. Those are all full now. We really focused on how to improve courses and programs for students, and the biggest thing was how do we deal with enrollment decline, and how do we deal with our name in a global and North American context, and I'll get to that in a moment. So the vision of the strategic plan, it wasn't what can we be. We really based it around what are we doing well already? What is it that's working really well that differentiates us from other colleges? And so the big goal that we came up with was that by 2027, we would be the college of choice for experiential place-based learning. And that's basically learning in our communities, in a cultural context, in a hands-on context, and celebrating this incredible environment that our campuses are based in. All of the photos that you're going to see here are representative of the new brand that we're moving towards, which is really telling stories about our students. And here, students are using a drone on one of our field schools this year. So incorporating technology into our classes. Here at the Prince Rupert campus, we have an innovation lab that Puyan is always happy to talk to folks about. We've got a 3D printer there, virtual reality technology, and we're always looking at new and exciting technologies to incorporate. We use drone technology in our programming as well. I think you were sent a link, and I will send another one. This is usually a video that I play of a student on one of our field schools talking about really the great impact that she experienced learning about First Nations reconciliation and anthropology in the field. And the beginning of that course, it was a Truth and Reconciliation course, actually started here in Prince Rupert. I joined that course with them, and we were at the cannery, we went to the museum, the Legion, and the old hospital site. Another key thing for our new strategic plan is creating adventurous pathways to transform lives. Now that sounds like kind of airy-fairy language, but really it's quite serious. Not only do we have an obligation to create pathways into the college for high school students and other students, we really pride ourselves on providing an opportunity for our students to go on and learn in other institutions beyond the first 2 years of college. Students that start out of college tend to do much better in a university setting after they've had the experience of a small college setting. And we were starting to see some barriers to recruitment, particularly internationally, to establishing pathways to international universities because of the name college. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. These are our first-year strategic goals. I won't spend a lot of time on them. Please do take the opportunity to check out the links that I put there. They'll give you an idea of some of the pathways that we're providing. We've done some we've got a very interesting Aboriginal inventory there that was just completed a couple months ago, and it summarizes all of the supports and services that we have for our First Nations students and communities. We do have an RFP out for a new web that will be built mobile up. Increasingly, in order to remain relevant, we have to have a pretty awesome website that works on a handheld device, because we know that I think it's 83% of women and 74% of men in Canada are on smartphones. So we know that this is how students are getting our information. And I put this here just so you can see that we're already making way on our first year strategic goals. This just demonstrates the declining student enrollment in School District 52. And this has a huge impact on the college, obviously. If we don't have the students in the region, we have to look outside of the region to draw. This trend is forecast to continue to decline, and we're seeing that both in School Districts 82 and School Districts 54 as well. So why change our name? I've alluded a little bit to it so far in my speedy presentation. But one of the reasons is that Northwest Community College is not a unique name. Especially if you're in the United States, there is a Northwest College in virtually every state. I actually had a friend Google Northwest Community College. She lives in Houston, Texas, and she took a screenshot of what she got, and we were definitely not on the first 12 that were listed. There are other Northwest Community Colleges in Canada, and there's certainly other Northwest colleges. This is the point where our president likes to say that we're not actually north. If you were to fold the map of British Columbia in half, most of the communities that we serve actually sit on the southern part of that line along Highway 16. And as we recruit from other places outside of this region, we know that it can be a temperate climate here, but the word north can be a little bit scary to folks when they're thinking, Inuvik. And Ken, our president, comes from the Northwest Territories. He grew up there, so that's one of his things. The community college conundrum, all you have to do is watch The Big Bang Theory to know that there is a pejorative sense that is associated with the word community. And in particular, we've been trying to establish those international pathways that we talked about, and we actually had a deal with a university in a Scandinavian country. And they said, yeah, we'll do 2 years here in Northwest Community College and 2 years at our university, and you'll get your credential. Only when it got to their Senate, the Senate said, not a chance, not if it's a community college. And that's because they don't recognize community colleges having those first 2 years of university. So it really is a barrier to providing those pathways for our students. And so we continue to work with those universities, and they've said, come back to us once that is resolved. Otherwise, we have to tack on an extra semester or an extra year for students to get their credentials. Some of the comments that I've had around moving away from the name Northwest Community College, from any concern that somebody might have, is that they feel that if we lose the word community, we'll lose our attachment to communities. And we serve 34 communities in a geographic area the size of Iceland. So we have an obligation to a great number of communities, many First Nations communities. And if we look at what we do day to day, we're in community all the time, or community is coming to us. So these are just a few pictures from some of the field schools that we had this summer. I won't spend a lot of time on them, but you can see that we're not just in one part of the region that we serve. These are stats from 2012, 2013, the last year that we had an economic driver study done based on the output of Northwest Community College. We're hoping to get a new study done in the coming year or so, but safe to say that as one of the major employers in the region, and with our students coming here, they also contribute to the local economy. So we know that that's a significant benefit to the communities that we serve. Also, from a perspective of community capacity building and course capacity building, we have started an international program. We are nowhere near what other colleges of our size have in terms of international students. Other colleges have upwards of 500 to 700. 4 years ago, we had 3 international students. I think Ken knew all of their names. We now have 65 in Terrace. There are 3 in Prince Rupert. We're looking at a business cohort starting here next semester, which will bring 20 international students to Prince Rupert. Having other students from outside our region has built capacity for programs. So programs that maybe only had 2 domestic students or regional students in it, but had 4 or 5 or 6 international students, suddenly you can run those courses and you don't have to cancel them. And we're coming out of an era where we've had to cancel courses due to low enrollment, and we're starting to see that turn around. Our enrollment across the board is up this year, I think about 12%, if I remember our last stats, so we're really excited to see that. Whew, I'm going fast, guys. But it's also building capacity in the community. I know one of the problems that we've had in Terrace with local businesses is not being able to find serving staff. Businesses have had to alter some of their hours because they don't have enough staff, but we're finding international students are getting employment with service providers and different businesses. So we know that that's also creating capacity within the community. So when we had the strategic plan kind of ironed out, we knew which way we were going. We came up with a short list of 30 names. Those were whittled down to 4 names. The most preferred were Sitka College, North Coast College, Coast Mountain College, and Skeena College. And in December of last year, we put that list out to our students, staff, faculty, community members, business colleagues throughout the region. We surveyed over 120 people and asked, if you were the college of choice for experiential place-based learning, what kind of name resonates with you? What resonates with the work that we're doing? North Coast College came close, but Coast Mountain College came out on top. And so that's what we've listened to the consultation that we did. We trust the folks that fed the process. We did a lot of consultation over the years. It wasn't just in December, so we're quite happy with where to go. But then we had the weirdest election in provincial history in the last 60 years, and so everything kind of got put on pause around the provincial election, and as government got under its feet. And so Minister Mark has given us the mandate to make sure that if she's likes the idea, she understands where we're going, but she wants to make sure that there is broad community support for the name change. And the reason for that is that our name sits within the College and Institutes Act. We can't, like a corporation, just apply to change our name and put a trademark on it. We have to have approval from the provincial government, and it's done by order in council. And in order for that to happen, the minister wanted us to engage one more time with communities. So that's why we're here. I think I've been to about 17 meetings in the last few weeks, and I've traveled from one end of our geographic area to the other and continue to have meetings until the end of this month. We are gathering letters of support from people for the name change if they feel that this is a good path for us to go down and if they see benefit to their community or organization for that. Just today, I've got a copy of it here with me if council wants to see it, but I do have a letter of support from the City of Terrace. Our Board of Governors has written a letter of support. Herb is here to answer any questions from a strategic direction perspective, from the board's perspective. We are also expecting a letter of support from, we've got a number, but also from School District 54 in the Bulkley Valley, who we met with a couple weeks ago. So we're really happy with the support that we're getting from the community. We hope we can add the City of Prince Rupert to that list. But I think I will stop talking and give you an opportunity to ask some questions if you have any.
Sure. Well, thank you. Yep.
Thanks very much for your presentation. I, for one, am hugely in support of the name change. I think you gave a really good presentation about, at least the way that I understand it, is this new strategic direction of experiential place-based learning. You need a name that's associated with the place that you're operating. And for me, Northwest Community College, there's a Northwest anything. Pacific Northwest, people think of Seattle. There's a Northwest Florida. There's a Northwest Mexico. I mean, it's not place-based in my mind. So I'm definitely going to be voting in favor of writing this letter of support, and I hope my colleagues will join me. I also get the point you're saying also about using the name change as a recruitment tool for international students, and I kind of see that, correct me if I'm wrong obviously, but I kind of see that playing into us becoming a destination for international students to come and study, but also to account for that declining enrollment that we're getting locally can also hopefully compensate and keep tuition-free fees from going up if we can get more international students here. So, but the one question I have, which is a little unfortunate, is I've heard through the grapevine that the school district locally here is not in favor, and I'm just wondering if they got this same presentation, because to me you'd knock this out of the park, and I think this is a slam dunk, but I'm a little bit at a loss of where some of that opposition might be coming from.
I can't speak for sorry about that. I can't speak for School District 52. I can tell you that I reached out to them at the end of September. I did send them a request to meet with them at their last council meeting, but they decided to take the news release that we issued about the engagement process as information. So it's unfortunate that they've decided not to support the name change. I would love to have the opportunity to speak with them and give them this presentation. And you know, my door is always open. It doesn't matter if you like the name or if you don't like the name. This is what engagement is all about. And not everybody's going to like Coast Mountain College, but I don't know why they don't. And I would love the opportunity to speak with them at some point. So I've extended the invitation again, and hopefully I'll hear from them and we'll be able to enter into dialogue. Thanks for the question.
Do you have any further questions, Councillor Morrow? Councillor Van.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. It looks like a great idea, name changing. My only concern is like you said, like you looking for recruiting students from outside or international. Like some other colleges, another part of Canada, they do the same thing. Then local communities, they can have a little bit trouble about that. Like colleges like to get more international students because they pay 3 times tuition fees instead of local students. So I was wondering, like, do we have any preference or make sure first give preference to local students? If you don't get enough students, then you can get an outsides. But our local community members, they should get the first preference. Is there any like law there?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm happy to answer that question. And yeah, our international program is not funded through base funding at this time, which means that any funding that we receive from the provincial government for base funding, all of our programs will go to those programs. So there's no resources being taken away from existing program to support the international program at this time. The other thing is that we are hoping that this will create capacity for students. So when I talked about the business marketing course that we ran this summer, we wouldn't have been able to run that with the 2 domestic students that wanted it, but we were able to run it because we had the international students. I think there were students from the Philippines and from India in that cohort, And so that was an example of capacity building. We've had a tremendous amount of interest from the international community and the domestic community for business courses, for example. So this is the first time in quite some time that we've actually run 3 cohorts in Terrace this year. And we're being very careful about how many students we can have in each class, because we have to remember too that when an international student comes to us, they're coming for a Canadian experience. They're not coming for an Indian experience in Canada. They want to interact and learn from their peers. To talk to the business instructor that ran that program this year, she said the global perspective on their final project, which was to create a marketing plan for 2 Indigenous tourism businesses in the Nass Valley. The international perspective was really interesting, and so to have all of those perspectives together was very good. We'll be very conscious of making sure that there are caps in place where we need to be. I know other schools that struggle with having too many international students applying have to put caps in place, so we're very conscious of that, and we certainly won't be displacing any domestic students in favor of international students. And we're not anywhere near that. We don't expect that we will be in the coming years. We're only in the first real year of this program. We have 65 students right now in Terrace. 20 of them are only here for the month of October. They're Mexican students. And we're hoping to have, like I said, 20 students coming to Prince Rupert for the business cohort that we're going to be running here next semester. So we're really hopeful that it's actually going to help Northwest Community College create that capacity for our existing students, when we know that sometimes there's not as many that would make the course viable otherwise. So it's definitely on the radar, and we're putting the right mechanisms in place so that doesn't happen. Thanks for the question.
Councillor Cunningham.
I fully support the name change, and I like the idea of recruiting foreign students. You answered my other question, whether a cap would be in place, but the fact that we've got a declining student population in both the secondary and postgraduate is quite alarming. And if we can get the college program supplemented with foreign students so you can actually put on a program, I think it's a great idea. And I like the idea that they're coming to Rupert too, because it's not part of the presentation, but I'm quite concerned about the courses or lack of courses we have in Rupert. And if foreign students coming here means that we can put more courses on here for the local people, it's a win-win. And if it's just a name change to recruit them, then I'm all for it.
Councillor Niche.
Basically along the same lines, I had dinner with Mr. Pond at an event there about a couple of weeks ago, and he explained the whole thing to us there, and I think it's a great idea, and if that's what it takes to get some more classes going, more revenue in for you guys, I have nothing against the name. I think it's a great idea.
Other comments from council?
Well, I always chuckle when a name is supposed to do something, but I certainly understand Northwest Community College. I've Googled Northwest Community College and found several Northwest Community Colleges. So I think that it is probably a good thing to change the name. I'm not really, if that's what the public wants, that's what the public can get. I don't really care what it would be called. I do have the same concerns as Councillor Randawa about I guess a number of things. One is course content. One is the courses that you're going to offer, and whether when you talk about a community college, because I notice you dropped the word community so that you can attract foreign students, is that your mandate when you first started was to reflect the needs of the community, and it was labor, Aboriginal, and academic. Those are the three pillars that the Northwest Community College was supposed to be built upon, and it dropped that in probably the late 80s and became just an ordinary college. It dropped the labor affiliation and the Aboriginal affiliation at that time and just became a college to deliver college courses with other non-academic courses added on. And I'm really concerned that the flavor that you not lose, and I don't think it matters what the name is, but by attracting international students, you not lose the flavor of the courses that I think that you've put on that reflect our area. So when you're talking about experiential, place-based learning, if that means you're going to continue the kind of programs that you've had where you go to Kitlope and have a look for anthropology and go to somewhere on Haida Gwaii to do something else, and somewhere up in Tultan territory to look at Mount Edna or whatever you're doing up there. Those are important things for our different communities. If we're just going to put on business courses and we're going to drop the trades courses that are needed by people in our communities and those kinds of things, then we're not doing ourselves any favor, right? The college is supposed to reflect our interests. So as long as you're still reflecting the interests of the communities that you're representing and not just cater, because it makes your bottom line better to have international students. And I don't have a problem with that. I think international students, I hosted many international students, for going to high school for the exchange programs. And I think it's a wonderful thing to bring international students in the community. But I also don't think that we should be changing who the college is supposed to be responsive to.
Yep.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I think the proof is kind of in this year we've increased our field school offerings, and for those of you that aren't familiar, field school is a university credit program that combines multiple courses so that students can take a compressed session in the intersession, so spring or summer. An example is the Haida Gwaii Field School combines geology, anthropology, and invertebrate biology. And so they can get up to 9 credits in just a 7-week period. And so those are the intensive opportunities in like 4 weeks in class, and I think it's 10 days in Haida Gwaii. So I've been on that field school as well, and there's something really profound about learning about invertebrate biology by walking on the tidal flats in front of Kyle Nagai. I know that the Stewart Telegraph Creek School, that'll be happening next year at the end of August. Getting up into Tultan territory is really critical. The one story that I can tell you from the Truth and Reconciliation Field School that we did this year was it combined in First Nation Studies and an anthropology course. We were at the cannery, and I try not to cry when I tell this story because it was quite profound, but we were at the cannery, and one of our students was from Morristown, and she brought her grandmother with her on the field trip to the cannery here. And her grandmother had worked in the Indigenous as an Indigenous employee at the cannery at a time where there was 12 to 14 people living in a tiny little cabin without heat. Indigenous workers were the only people that were allowed to bring their families with them when they came to work at the cannery. And we were up in the net loft, and she said, this is where the daycare was. Well, if we had only been getting the tour by the person that worked there, they wouldn't have known that one detail, that was the daycare that they had their kids in while they were working downstairs in the cannery. When we went to different places, she could tell us stories about what she remembered. And the impact of having an elder tell that kind of story is exactly the kind of place-based experiential learning that we're talking about. And when we talk about reconciliation moving forward as a post-secondary institute, it's not about a document, and it's not about trying to get people to sit on a council or a committee. It's that actual stuff happening day to day where people are connecting with elders and starting to understand the impact of residential schools and how we can move forward through dialogue. So I can tell you for sure that staff and faculty have embraced this experiential model. We're seeing instructors who are doing really interesting things for that. So it's not even just getting out into the field. It's some of the work that Puyan and his team are doing here on the Prince Rupert campus in terms of really developing a technology-based approach to school that the province has asked us to tell them more about, incorporating the virtual reality and the 3D printer, and we're looking at some other exciting technologies even just in the next week. It's really driving the university credit side of it, so that won't be lost. As for trades, we've got a harmonized carpentry program happening next semester. We do have a trades, is it carpentry or electrical, I think, on right now here in Prince Rupert. And we'll also be running the professional cook level 1 in Prince Rupert next semester. So we're on the right track. Are we doing everything right in every community? No. We still have work to do, but at least we've been able to take an opportunity to look at where those gaps are and start to address them. And I'm really proud to say that we haven't canceled any of our university credit courses this year, and that might be the first time in I don't know how many years, Herb, 3 or 4 at least. So for us, that's a sign that we're on the right track. And I'll pass your comments on to our president as well.
I'll just chime in for a final comment. So thank you. Personally, I have no issues with the name change. If someone who's benefited from experiential learning, myself, I understand the model you're going to go with in this area is definitely the right strategy for sure. I think part of your strategy for the rebranding to overcome would be this kind of, after being at the UBCM a couple of weeks ago talking to different mayors, people feel that this is a terrace college, right? That there's a consolidation happening in terrace. After the announcement in Houston, that there's this kind of underlying plan to make sure that Terrace is the benefactor of all the funding and the outlying communities are the crumbs of the programming. However true or not true that is, I guess my message to you today is I think that's an underlying theme with the college, and it's something I think you guys should address if you're going to be rebranding in terms of recommitting to the local communities in the area and maybe strengthening the student associations in those communities so that there's more of a culture and more of a community around the college, I guess you could say. I can see how having international students could be a good boost. But it's always easier for everyone to market outside our families and selves, but to convince the people inside your own tent is also another issue. I think you should have a two-prong approach to that rebrand. Some feedback I've been getting lots around. I don't have any specific comments about it. It's your business to run the college. However, it is feedback that is coming strongly from other communities that are not in Terrace. And so just something to be aware of.
Thank you.
And other than that, I think you're on the right path with this direction. I'm very pleased to see it's kind of breathing new life into something, which is always good. And I don't have any other further comments if council doesn't. So I just want to thank you for your guys' time today. And if you have any final comments that you'd like to say, or if not, then we definitely appreciate your time.
Great. No, just thank you for your time. We appreciate the opportunity to sit here and have a conversation, and I've made notes on everything that everybody said, so I'll be bringing that back to our executive. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, and thanks to Rose for organizing everything today. I didn't see her here tonight, but
right. Well,
I
pass that
appreciate her
along
help.
for sure. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 6A, a report from our community planner. I was going to say, if council is okay with a friendly motion to do a motion to support the name change. So moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Nish. Any discussion?
Yeah, just one thing that we can write down, make sure first our local students should get first preference, and there should be cap for that, because other communities they have problem. Those colleges try to hire and recruit more international students, and local students don't get the preference there. So I think we can write down that.
That's fine, yep. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to a report from our community planner regarding the application for development variance permits at 508 8th Avenue East. Welcome back.
This development variance permit request at 508 8th Avenue East is for the purpose of renovating a single-family residence that currently exists in nonconformance to setback standards of the Prince Rupert zoning bylaw. The full application is included in the report. The application is to vary Section 5.2.4 to decrease the side yard setback from 1.2 meters to 0.94 meters at the east boundary. This is for the purpose of building a second-story dormer, which would otherwise be contravening into the side yard setback. Staff issued notification of the proposed variance to the neighboring residences within a 50-meter radius. Staff did not receive any inquiries or comments. Additionally, the applicant is in process of lot consolidation. With approval, staff will issue the proposed permit with sufficient progress demonstrated. In conclusion, as of today's date, we did not receive any objections that would prevent approval of this application for variance. Do you have any questions?
Questions from council? Okay, so the recommendation is that the development variance permit, application number DP 1708 for 508 8th Avenue East, proceed to final consideration. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next up, we have an application for development variance permit at 1034 First Avenue West. And we are swapping places here. Welcome back, Mr. Cricket.
So this application here is to vary subject properties located. The subject property is located at 1034 First Avenue West. Just around the corner is the Five Corners intersection. The application is to vary the height. So this is the view from the First Avenue, and this is the view from the harbor. And the reason for variance is this uneven ground elevation, which when we average the four corners comes to 7 feet above the allowable 29.5 feet maximum height. This is a new build. It is an established neighborhood. The proposed building will have 3 residential units and cover parking. In essence, it will be an improvement over the dilapidated and vacant building which sat on this lot for over a decade. The height overage is primarily to accommodate the covered garage, which will assure that on-site parking is provided. The subject property is located within a multiple family development permit area in the RM2 zone. Consequently, this application is associated with development permit application, which will follow the final consideration of this development variance permit, tentatively scheduled for October 30th. There are no cost or budget implications to the city for approving or not approving this application, and the applicant requires approval to proceed to public notification.
Questions from council? Councillor Cunningham?
Yeah, I have a concern. I like the idea. I'm all for the variance, but I have a concern about drainage on this. I noticed it's on the upper side of quite a slope, and I went and visited the actual location, and I noticed that in the drawing you've got a bank there that looks like it comes up. At the moment, the top of the foundation for the garage is level with the ground, and below it you have houses. My concern is the drainage for this. Is it going to be tied into the city storm sewer, or is it approved drainage? It's something that concerns me because you've got quite a slope behind this house, and if the drainage isn't done properly on this particular building, you could have a problem with eroding of that slope or flooding of the houses below it.
On this property here, we have definitely what we call internal referral. But prior to internal referral, I had a meeting with all of the internal stakeholders, which included engineering, and we did talk about the drainage, to which end the engineering is satisfied that what they are working on is correct. I couldn't tell you the details of the drainage, but I will definitely bring it to the next meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to have some details because to me it could be a concern for the residents below.
Councillor Randhawa?
Yeah, like next door house, 1030, I believe, something. that house is very high too. So compared to this house, how much be the difference with?
I couldn't tell you the difference that they're sitting on the elevation, but I would assume that this elevation that is following this way would essentially go further downhill from that point on. Again, I could not answer that question immediately, but I will definitely bring it to the next meeting.
Other questions, Councillor Nish?
Not so much question, just I had a look at it today. So kind of to answer Mr. Randhawa's question, looking at if it was to be 3 stories, I think it would be very similar roof heights to the house next door to it, because that house next door is kind of up on a rock bluff. So I don't think you're going to see much of a difference there. And supposedly it's going to be a similar height to what was currently there before, which was an apartment building at one point. I did have a conversation about the drainage issues, which this isn't why we're here tonight, but it sounds like there's some issues to work out, but they will get worked out. I look at this development and think it's it's a great thing to improve what was currently there. I really have no issue, but I would like to see, what the neighbors have to say. If you look from across the street, it's it really won't impact anyone. There's no ocean view that will be impacted because currently there's a whole bunch of trees behind that property, so nobody's losing anything from that perspective. And they really didn't have it anyways because there was a building there for years. So, I'd like to. See this proceed a little further, I support it.
I just had one question, and it was about the parking. So how is the parking going to be accessed from, I imagine, off First?
Yeah. It will be accessed from First Avenue. So I do not have the one of the slides in your agenda package, which is on page 33 of your agenda, which I didn't include in the overhead projector, shows a lot plan, and so the garage will be, or the garage doors will be accessed from the First Avenue.
So I was just wondering, it looks like from the drawing on page 32, which the drawing you have up there, if you go down further, yeah. So is the garage going to take up the whole space underneath the building?
Yes.
And that's only room for 3 cars?
There'll be definitely, in this garage, there'll be room for more than 3 cars, probably room for some toys and some storage. For us and for the planning and engineering, what's important is that we keep the cars off the street, and we know that 1 per unit, as we have had a number of conversations over the last short little while, it's probably understated that in the current economy, the families will have more than 1 car, and having something like this would probably assure that we are not going to have cars parked in the street.
Yeah, that's good. I was just wondering because the drawing seemed to suggest it was under the whole apartment, right? But then you said only 3 cars, so that's why I understand what you mean now. Okay, so I thought, geez, that's an awful big space for only 3 cars. So maybe maybe the whole basement wasn't going to be garage. So that's what I was asking. Thank you,
Councillor Morrow.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. There's a few different pieces or policies or strategies that we're working on that I think this project is consistent with, so I'm just going to rattle them off here and why I'm in support of moving this forward to public notification. It's more residential in an already established neighborhood. It replaces a deteriorated structure, creates more housing supply. It actually supplies enough off-street parking. It enhances our tax base, and it's also increased residential density close to the downtown, which is exactly what we're trying to encourage. So that's why I'm in favor of moving this forward to public notification.
Any further comments? Okay, recommendation that the development variance permit application DP 1710 for 1034 First Avenue West proceed to public notification. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, next up we have 160 Van Arsdale Street.
The subject property concerning this application is...
Microphone, Mr. Cricket. Thank you.
The subject, I'm definitely out of shape, out of rhythm, but a couple of meetings and I'll be right back. So this, the subject property is located on Van Arsdale Street and also has an access from Graham Avenue, which is currently its backyard. The purpose of this variance permit arises from the application for subdivision. The applicant proposes to subdivide the entire lot into two smaller parcels. The parcel and the variance we're concerned about today is for the lot number 2, in which case the building exceeds the lot floor area coverage from 1.0 to 1.2. And the new lot then would be available for again introducing another residential building. Subject to this variance permit being approved, the applicant has received a preliminary letter of approval, and it will go towards final subdivision. This application again requires notification, your approval to proceed to public notification.
Councillor Thorpeston.
I was wondering if Mr. Cricket could remind us of how the how subdivision works.
Subdivision, the basic component of subdivision is a minimum lot size. The minimum lot size for in our R2 and R1 is 232 meters. If you have adequate size, you pass through the first gates. From that point on, subdivision approving officer will consider a variety of concerns, including community, good to the community, assure that there is access, that there is no conflicts of various legal matters, and subdivision is a purview approving officer, not the council. In this situation, because we're talking about development variance permit, council essentially has an opportunity to view a subdivision prior to it going to final approval. And by the way, council can either agree or disagree with this proposal.
Councillor Nish.
I just wasn't too sure. Did you say that where the house currently sits would be over their maximum coverage if the subdivision came into place?
Yeah. Yes. So when we updated the zoning bylaw, the floor area ratio was brought into the zoning bylaw for specifically for 25-foot lots. In this situation, we had a very large house that was sitting on an oversized lot. And so that essentially is what happens when you have a very large house. You would exceed floor area ratio. Now, floor area ratio was given to 25-foot lots in order to bring more flexibility from building extremely narrow houses, narrow and tall. So in this situation, it's kind of conflicting with a large lot and a large house being subdivided.
This one was a tough one for me, but that kind of makes it. The way I look at it is, if that house was going to be under the zoning bylaws, then I wouldn't really have as much of an issue with it. But by allowing them to now be over their normal coverage on a piece of property in order for them to make a smaller lot to sell another lot, to me that just doesn't seem right. Because basically then anyone in this town could go and make their current house exceed the allowable lot coverage and then cut up a little small lot on it and go from there. Like I don't think that that's the right way of going about it.
Mr. Long?
Yeah, just want to point out one thing in terms of subdivision. Basically, the approving officer can't subdivide into nonconformity. So if council doesn't allow the floor area ratio to be amended, or then the subdivision is not permitted. So that's how we get to where we are here today. Typically, the approving officer wouldn't entertain this subdivision if that process allows sort of results in a nonconformity.
Other questions? Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to get at here is that that's turning that current house into a non-conforming property after, if this gets subdivided, does it not?
Yes, only within a context of the requirement of floor area ratio. But the first item, and I'm not going to be arguing with your principles, but the first thing in a subdivision is adequate lot size. So you can't just, you have to have an adequate size of the property to create a new lot. So to be just asking for to be able to ask for a variance to create a small lot is not necessarily something that's going to happen. In fact, probably there's a very, very few existing properties that have this kind of a situation, because the other point is it has an access from both Van Arsdale and Graham Avenue. If it didn't have access from Graham Avenue, then we do not we don't have any panhandle lots.
I get that, and that's why when I looked at this before, I kind of felt that because of the situation being accessible from Graham and from Van Arsdale, I get it. It's kind of a shame though, because that is probably one of the most beautiful houses in town, and they're going to ruin that nice landscaping. But if they get the go ahead to do it, but I know there was a property on Graham that had this before, where they were trying to subdivide it, as you say, with a panhandle lot, and I know there was quite a bit of pushback from neighbors around that. So, that being said, I guess we can move forward and hear from the public and see what they have to say, if that's what the next step would be with this too, with the subdivision, because I can imagine there's going to be a bit of pushback on this one too.
Just a clarification, subdivision doesn't have anything to do with this process. This is strictly development variance permit. Subdivision is a totally different instrument awaiting for this decision. If this decision proceeds, subdivision will proceed. If this doesn't proceed, subdivision will not proceed.
Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, one thing we've discussed quite a bit is parking, street parking. You put lot 1 there. Lot 2 at the top has adequate parking in the front, quite a bit. You look at the proposed footprint for that house there. Where are you going to have parking? And secondly, it looks like your setbacks from the property line on both right and left-hand sides are not within the setbacks.
So on this drawing, I specifically asked to put in a building footprint to the maximum of existing setbacks. So existing setbacks are satisfied. 3.6 meter in the back, in the front, 3 meters in the back, 1.2 meters on the sides. That being said, when I look at your truck, Councillor Cunningham, you probably would have a hard time parking that truck in a 3-meter front yard. However, those are our standards. So they do satisfy standards, and technically speaking, they can have a parking that's 3 meters and probably not be able to park as a larger vehicle as yours.
On Graham Avenue and Van Arsdale, every house on Graham Avenue has a nice driveway. As you drive down Graham Avenue, you don't see a lot of parked cars. You get down to this end of Graham Avenue, and I was there today, and there's more and more parked cars on that road. And this would just be adding to cars on the road, I believe. I tend to agree with Councillor Wade. This here that we'll let the public in the area decide on the variance.
Other comments from council? Councillor Thorkelson.
I thought I understood, but then I didn't understand because of your answer to Wade. So right now the house conforms on the property, no problem. So if the house remained like this, we would not have to have this discussion because it doesn't need any kind of a variance permit. No. So the only reason we're having this discussion is because of the proposal to subdivide the lot. So once we subdivide the lot, the house will therefore be non-conforming. Okay, so that's what I had understood. I just didn't understand that was your answer to Wade. So yes, I understand that now. Okay, so I thought I understood, but I misunderstood your explanation to Wade then.
Other comments from council?
It's already answered. I think we should go with that.
Okay, so the recommendation that the development variance permit application number DP 1709 for 160 Van Arsdale Street proceeds to public notification process. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you for your time. Okay, next correspondence for action from Katrine Conroy, Minister of Children and Family Development, regarding a proclamation request. The recommendation is that Council proclaim October 2017 as Foster Family Month in the City of Prince Rupert. Moved by Councillor Renhow, second by Councillor Moreau. Discussion? I'd just like to do a quick shout out to a friend of mine, Tom Bertrand, who is a foster parent in town, and he hosts teenage boys until they graduate, and he does a great job. And I just wanted to give him a bit of shout out. If there's no other discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next up, we have a verbal report from our Chief Financial Officer. Not sure if we need any more discussion to finalize our previous discussion. So the recommendation is that Council adopts the 2018-2019 Permissive Property Tax Exemption Amendment Bylaw number 3417/2017. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Renhowa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. As well as the last item, 9B, recommendation that Council give first, second, and third readings to the 2017 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw number 3418/2017. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Renhowa. Did you have any comments to that? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to reports from Council. Quick couple items here. First, so 3 things around public engagement. Now that it's the fall, UBCM's over, we're going to be moving into doing some public engagement for the community. So 3 things to look forward to. First is the city was awarded $150,000 from the Rural Dividend Fund for the second phase of Redesign Rupert. So we applied for that as a council resolution back in May. There was a slow government changeover, so we were expecting the funding to come sooner. So a report will be coming to council around the second piece of that. The first phase was a great success. We did the design recharge event. A lot of information from the public was gathered from that. We had nearly 2,000 engagements with the community. So a lot of feedback that came back, and now the next step will be to do the action items that came out of that. So luckily that's going to be funded from the Rural Dividend Fund, so looking forward to seeing that get off the ground next couple months. Next, we're going to be hosting an open house for Watson Island in November. Date and time and location is still to be confirmed for that, but to have an opportunity for the community to come and hear about all the progress that has been made on Watson Island. And lastly, we're going to be hosting what we're calling our Haze 2.0 Blueprints presentation. So we had our vision of Haze 2.0, and now we're going to be releasing kind of the blueprint or the plan on how we're going to enable this vision. It's going to be a town hall format at the Lester Centre. It's going to be on November 22nd, the Wednesday evening, from 7 to 9 at the Lester Centre. The topics that will be discussed are our infrastructure priorities regarding things like the RCMP station. We'll be talking about the order of those priorities, about the water supply, things like that. We'll be talking about regional transportation initiatives, including access to the airport. We'll be talking about strategies on how we're going to be potentially increasing city revenues. We're going to be chatting about Prince Rupert Legacy, Watson Island. We'll also be talking about vision for Prince Rupert's future, the challenges we face now, some of the solutions that we've designed to address some of those challenges. So it'll be a place where we're going to be revealing a variety of new information to the community, which will be great, and you'll be able to ask questions from council. So it'll be a great evening. Looking forward to that. So you'll be seeing a poster such as this being distributed here this or next week, and more information will be posted online from our communications team this week. So lots of ways for the community to get engaged with some of the topics of council and the community. And that's my report. Other councillor reports. Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, I have three things, two sort of housekeeping things and one that we'll get a discussion about. The first is I'd really like to thank the staff for their work at UBCM. They met with a lot of the ministers' deputies and that and paved the way for our meetings, and I thought it was very beneficial. We had some excellent meetings down there, and I'm hoping we have some excellent results. The second thing is I asked a couple of months ago about this spring possibly having fish boats tie up and have a fish market like a farmer's market has in Terrace on Saturdays or Sundays. And I just wanted to know if our city manager has looked into that.
Yeah, we're looking into seeing how actually we can find the right fishermen to do it. But yeah, we agree. We think it's a great idea.
And the third thing is I'd like to discuss the committee of the whole meetings. We canceled one, and I don't think they should be canceled. I think even if we don't have an agenda, that it's an opportunity for people to come before council, and by taking that opportunity away, I think we're sort of giving the public a bad message. I don't believe our committee of whole meetings are as effective as they should be, and I think we should have a discussion around a way to improve them or that, or maybe Councillor Moreau came up with a really good idea with like a coffee shop type discussion where we just get people together and have a discussion. If this formal setting isn't to some people's liking, maybe an informal one would. I also think that I've asked for months and months, years actually, about having department reports. I think they could come up in a committee of the whole meeting as a presentation. It would be something we could do. I just think it's something we should have a discussion, open discussion about, because I think committee of the whole meetings are very important, and I really think if we can find a way to improve them collectively in this room here, then we should put our heads together and try and do it.
Okay, thank you. Other comments from Councillor Moreau?
I just want to echo that point made by Councillor Cunningham and just elaborate on the point about committee of the whole, because I found that, I definitely agree that committee of the whole can be improved. It's an opportunity for the public to come and speak to us, and every time you read the statement from the chair, there's that one line about, it's supposed to be an informal setting for the public to engage us, and I feel just the venue we're in, the microphones, the cameras on, we're in a raised thing, and you've got the public coming up. A lot of people are intimidated. They don't want to come and present to council the way that they would at a regular meeting. So I don't really think that committee of the whole, the way it's currently designed, is actually meeting the objective to provide the public with an opportunity to actually talk to or engage with council in a little bit of a more informal way. So that's kind of the idea that I had bounced off of Councillor Cunningham. So, moving forward, there's a lot of different examples from other communities. Smithers is one that comes to mind for me, where they do kind of informal coffee talks once a month. Not all of council can obviously make it every month, but it's just an opportunity for the council to hear from people's concerns and actually have a conversation rather than a formal 5 minutes on the agenda, present with your PowerPoint. We have a couple minutes to answer questions, and it just doesn't really feel like a good way to engage the community. So I'm definitely in agreement with Councillor Cunningham on the need to reform and improve committee of the whole.
Well, these are great points. I think the committee of the whole, the function of it is actually designed to, you usually use it to have a conversation about a specific topic. It's not necessarily designed as a public engagement tool. However, I think we can have a mix between using committee of the whole and having some other mechanism. We have other public engagements. The Redesign Rupert Initiative is another great tool to have meaningful discussion and participation, and actually helping co-create the community. Just what happens, we've counseled other community halls in the past. Usually we have people come forward, they'll register for it. If people don't register, then we say, well, there's no interest. So it's not because we don't want people to come forward. So I agree. I think a discussion should be in order. There's different communities do it different ways. For example, Terrace, they schedule them for specific topics. We, and like Quinnell, we use them on every month. We have one. But my feedback I've been getting is people don't feel comfortable coming on a microphone to just chat with us. So I think it's a dual purpose thing. Some sort of mechanism where we can sit down informally at a coffee shop or something and also keep it going, because I do think there are formal times where people need to come forward. We did start those presentations, just for record. We had the RCMP come. We will be moving forward with other departments coming forward so that they were the beginning of the request you made, just so you know. But that's great points, and looking forward, so we'll add that as a discussion item on the next, why don't we put it in the committee of the whole at our next meeting to have a discussion about it. So, other reports from council?
I like that idea.
Yeah. Councillor Thorkelson.
Yeah, I have something that again, we're getting into our first rainy days and stormy days of the fall. And we still remain, even after all council's engagement and with Macola and other housing providers, we still don't have really a proper shelter other than Raffles. And Raffles will not take Raffles. Is a Salvation Army shelter, and it will not house couples. It will only house men. It's a men's shelter, basically, and women are directed to the transition shelter. So there are couples in town who don't want to be split up, and for any number of reasons, and lots of times it's because the woman has had a traumatic experience and doesn't want to leave her partner. So I'm not quite sure, other than keeping the pressure on the province, what we can do about getting a proper supportive housing is what we need in our community. Not just a shelter where you stick somebody, but an actual home where they can go. So the housing first shelter idea. And I think we still have to put pressure on, well, we particularly have to put pressure on this new government, who should be providing money for every small community to have some kind of a place where people who have mental health and addictions problems can sleep, and where they have an actual home where they don't have to be on the street, as many of our residents in Prince Rupert are. There are two other things, though, that I think that we need to put our head to that we haven't really done in the past. And I'm hoping that maybe we can engage some businesses downtown or in our community to give us a hand. And the first is a day area. The homeless people are out in the streets, or people who are crashing at their relatives' places, but aren't really aren't there during the daytime. So many people sneak into town to sleep, or sneak into housing to sleep during the nighttime, and then have to be out in the daytime before they're reported to, because they're not supposed to be there. And they have no place to do but hang around behind the Salvation Army, the old Bingo Palace, behind the Fisherman's Hall, behind the college, behind in the alleyways, and there are no public bathrooms, and so people can't sit down and keep sheltered and play a game of cards and use the bathroom. And so I would suggest around town the bushes are being used and the lanes are being used as places for people to defecate and urinate. And that's not safe for our community. And it's certainly not good for those people who are people. If you have to go to the bathroom, as every mother knows, dragging a child around, you have to find a place for a bathroom. Now, most stores will let a mother with a child go in and use a bathroom, but most stores in town, I can pretty well say you're not going to be letting people, homeless people, use their staff bathrooms to relieve themselves in, which means people have no other ability to no other place to go except in the bush. And so I know the mall, I imagine, still has a place to go, but if you have to go to the bathroom and you're eating a poor diet, many times you have problems with diarrhea, and when you need to go, you need to go, and you need to go now. And so we should try to figure out how to have some public bathrooms in areas around town that are available during the daytime to especially to our own residents, but they could also be for tourists. And I saw in several towns, I saw really nice places to go to the bathroom in many small towns where they have a public bathroom in a central place that is kept clean. It's maintained, and it doesn't look like a scary place to go. But it's, you're not going down to some dark, deep cavern like some of the bathrooms I remember in Stanley Park, where you're afraid to go when you were a child. And I think that we could look at either putting some porta potties up, or talking to merchants, or trying to find a day area where people could use the bathroom there, and trying to find some places for people to do two things. One, stay dry during the daytime, have a place to play cards, and a place where they can use the bathroom. So, I really think that those are two needs, and last winter showed us those needs with the snow, and if we have snow again this winter, we're going to be in the same problem. But it's not fun being wet, sitting out all day in the wet and rain. And people with mental illness and addictions don't have a choice. It's not their choice to do that. But we aren't, as a society, we aren't giving them finding a place where they can stay and have a house. We should at least try to find them some place where they can stay during the day as a shelter to play some cards. And I want to say it. Last winter we opened the Fisherman's Hall up, one of our meeting rooms up, and we had many of the homeless people come in, and that's what they did. They played cards, they chatted, they drew beautiful First Nations drawings on the board, or other drawings on the board, on our blackboard. And nobody was riotous for the 3 weeks that we let people in. Nobody threw up all over the place. Nobody destroyed the meeting room. They were just so happy to be able to have somewhere dry to stay until 11 o'clock at night, when they could go to one of the churches in town was supplying at that time a shelter for them. So anyway, I just really think it's something that as a community we need to put our heads to, because first of all, it's a public safety issue. We shouldn't be having, it's bad enough to have dog defecation in town, people defecation in town, and that these people, every human being has the right to go to the bathroom as a human right. It has to be a human right. So anyway, that's why I want to throw open. I'm hoping that we can get our own brains going around this, but we can also engage people in the community to look and see if there's anybody who is willing to provide some kind of a spot for daytime use for people with mental illness and addictions, where they can have a place to use the washroom, and to maybe a microwave to heat something up, and a place, dry and warm place to play cards or draw, whatever they want to do, knit. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. But it is, it's going to be one of those going into awful weather time now, and it's just not right that some of our population should be treated like that.
Well, those are some great points, Councillor Thorkelson. And just to say that Councillor Cunningham and I had the opportunity to sit down with the MLA on Friday for an hour to discuss housing and homelessness. now that she's in part of this government, I think there'll be an opportunity to work closely together. She actually mentioned she is meeting with the Minister of Housing this week, and we're going to make sure that we stay on top of that, and maybe at a future council meeting we can have Ms. Rice come and present to council on some of the initiatives that they're doing for Prince Rupert as well. But I do believe you're right. We have to do more for the community, and we've done lots already, and we have to continue up that effort. So any final comments from council?
I just want to say that the time and effort we put into housing and the results are just about nil are very frustrating. I know people think we've done nothing, but we've had meetings. It's a provincial situation that we have to wrap our heads around and try and find a way to get more help from. The city itself can't create affordable housing, but what we can do is put enough pressure, and with the MLA now being on the government side, and she's more than willing to knock on doors and help us, we might get some results. The last government, it was all tied into LNG. If LNG happens, you'll get this, you'll get that. It was like a carrot they kept dangling in front of us. This government here seems to be, after talking to them, a little more perceptive about situations like this. There's a human side to them. It's their first time in government, so they're looking at it a bit different than a party that was in government for 3 terms and was getting kind of arrogant and thinking that they were untouchable. And I'm hoping that these last meetings we had will be productive. It's so frustrating to sit down and talk to people, and there's solutions to the problems. The only part of that solution is money, and it's the province that has to put up that money, and they just don't seem to be up till now doing it. And we're hopefully there's an end light at the end of the tunnel on this one, because it's been very frustrating.
Yeah, and there's multiple organizations working on that too. So yeah, I agree. Any final reports from council?
I want to say, I think there are multiple organizations working on that. I mean, we obviously have passed helped move forward the proposal that the Metlakatla is going to do, and there's certainly other First Nations organizations that are looking at creating housing, and I imagine they'll be coming before us too. But one of the things that we need is supportive housing, and I haven't seen one supportive housing proposal where people with mental illness and addiction issues can go and have a place to live. And I know the city cannot provide that, and I'm not suggesting that we do, but we must push on that file, as it looks like we will get some housing through some more housing development through First Nations, but I haven't seen one proposal for supportive housing, and so we really need to get on the province to provide that. But what I am hoping is that somebody downtown will open one of their closed doors and say, for this winter, maybe we can get a grant if somebody wants to do that, to open their doors to let people go in there and have a dry place to be that has a bathroom. Right. It's something that is just needed. If we can't supply supportive housing, surely we can in this place with a bunch of empty teeth in our downtown. Find some place, all pitch in to try to provide some place for people to keep dry, warm, and have a place to go to the bathroom.
Thank you, Joy. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.